So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the second tabernacle services, where we find your Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end as per Yeshayahu the prophet. We find layers of understanding of the spring feast, the autumn feast, and also the returning of the cities of the Mashiach laid waste from many centuries. Reading from Yeshayahu the prophet, we find then a bit of understanding in bits and pieces of the time of the restoration of the tabernacle. And obviously, during this period of time, not only tabernacling is being restored, but also a couple more layers of trade and military are obviously lining up for the time of the end as per the Hebrew instructions, and came out very importantly today a very important article regarding Asia Minor, mostly the country of Turkey, purchasing S-400 air protection systems. So obviously during this period of time where the nations then are adjusting themselves regarding this particular period of time, never under any condition experienced before, the Holy Instructions in Hebrew gives us very many clues of what situations are related with the time of the end. Now then, there are some sections of these Holy Instructions where we find then the West in its system severely weakened because of economical troubles. And then the Holy Instructions also are giving a few understandings of the covenant and also the recuperation of the economy later on. Now, there is a point of then the military retrieving. Now then, understandably, the Soviet Union is back, and the number of contracts for the purchases of arms and these very modern systems are being highly requested. So then, when we read the 11th chapter, there is a portion regarding the kingdom of the north coming later with a great army and much equipment. So portions of these specific verse gives us a point of understanding, and these obviously is linked with the ships of the West then returning. Now then, the scripture is not 100% at this point in time yet clear because the events are not taking place. As the events then they become available, then a lot of these layers they can be placed properly in sequence, such as, for instance, the 8th verse, speaking of, for instance, Egypt. Understandably, Egypt is not a word of Hebrew or Aramaic, but later on was edited because they were able to identify it. Now then, the ships is either for the moment they return because of the economy that's so bad, or because the Soviet Union then is taking the place of the United States. So then this fact requires a bit more investigation, so then it determines the proper set course of the American economy. Now then, the prophet Daniel does not give the total details of this particular layer. Now, Yeshayahu the prophet, he gave more details regarding this particular layer because of the linkage with tabernacling. Now then, Yeshayahu mentioned regarding the area beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. Now obviously those are the sons of Cush. Now once again, the name of the place, the geographical name, was later on replaced with another name because the event had taken place. So as the scripture was then edited because of the events, obviously the time of the restoration period must line up with the same understanding as before. Now the problem is when the people they get overly religious, they have a tendency, can't touch the scripture because it's holy and it's got nothing to do with it. Some sections related with tabernacle, absolutely. Related with the temple or the Torah must not change. Now then, the Gentile portions of the scripture and the prophecies, as the situations they take place, the scripture must be updated. Because the angel himself spoke with Daniel the prophet, and he said, close the words of this understanding, and this particular layer or portion of the scripture is for the time of the end. So the details were not given. However, we know that they do exist, yet they must take place, at least the initiation of these events, so then the scripture can become easier to identify prior of understanding the dynamics from those areas identified. So then, Galah or Revelation gives us then the entire gathering of many prophets, and they spoke of certain layers of the restoration period, autumn feast, and then the development of the spiritual portion that these events should take place under. Now, some people, they are very secular, they don't believe in any spiritual situations. Some people, they have a tendency of understanding only the spiritual situations. And the scripture, they gives us both. Physical understanding, interactions amongst the nations, and most importantly, on a level of a spiritual realm, where then the portion of scripture related with tabernacling gives us then the specific step-by-step formation as it was prior of the time where then tabernacling was firstly destroyed. Now for some people, they don't have a clue what it is, obviously, because they don't study the scripture. They don't do what Shaul said in Romans 12, renew your minds with the scripture. And when they do remind themselves of doing so, then they use a scripture that was badly translated. That's why many people, unfortunately, they don't have a desire to read this scripture, because they simply don't relate it with it. They don't have a personal relation with the scripture. Now, Shaul was very specific. Renew your mind with the Torah, with the Tanakh, the prophets, the writings. And most importantly, that the people should understand prophecy. So next time I'm going to explore more of these situations. So please stay tuned. Much more coming up.